After 20 years of faithful service to his country, Staff Sergeant Marcus Hayes deserved better than this. He'd sacrificed his youth, his peace of mind, and countless nights of sleep defending the freedom we all take for granted, only to come home and discover something was terribly wrong with his body. The small lump on his neck had appeared just 3 weeks after his discharge from the Army. At first, Marcus thought it was nothing, maybe a swollen lymph node from the stress of adjusting to civilian life. But the growth kept getting bigger and stranger. It felt warm to the touch, almost alive, pulsing with a rhythm that didn't match his heartbeat. Dr. Elizabeth Carver had treated thousands of veterans at the Nashville VA Medical Center. She thought she'd seen everything. When Marcus sat in her examination room that October morning, she noticed the fear in his weathered eyes. This wasn't just another routine checkup. Something about this case felt different, dangerous even. The doctor decided to take action and squeeze the mysterious lump. But what happened next would send everyone in that sterile room running for their lives. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Asterisk. Marcus Hayes had never imagined that coming home would be harder than going to war. The quiet streets of Clarksville, Tennessee felt more foreign to him now than the dusty roads of Kandahar ever had. After 2 decades in the Army, spanning tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and places that didn't officially exist on any mission reports, he'd expected the transition to civilian life to be challenging. What he hadn't anticipated was how deeply the silence would unsettle him. The house on Maple Street where he'd grown up still looked the same white clapboard siding, wraparound porch, and the old oak tree his grandfather had planted in 1952. His wife Sarah had maintained it perfectly during his deployments, sending him photos of each season's changes. Spring's dogwood blossoms, summer's full green canopy, autumn's golden cascade of leaves. Now, sitting on that same porch at dawn with his coffee growing cold, Marcus felt like a stranger in his own story. Sarah understood, or at least she tried to. They'd been married 18 years, and she'd weathered every deployment, every middle of the night phone call, every period of radio silence that stretched her nerves to breaking. She was a teacher at the local elementary school, a woman who believed in routine and structure qualities that had kept their family anchored while Marcus served overseas. Her auburn hair showed more silver now, and worry lines had etched themselves around her green eyes, but she still greeted him each morning with the same gentle smile that had captured his heart when they were both 20-4. Their daughter, Emma, was 17 now, a senior at Montgomery Central High School. Marcus had missed too many of her birthdays, too many school plays, too many father-daughter dances. The guilt of those absences sat heavy in his chest, a weight that no amount of medals or commendations could balance. Emma had grown from the pigtailed 8-year-old who used to cry at his departures into a poised young woman who treated his return with careful politeness, as if he were a respected guest rather than her father. The adjustment hadn't been smooth for any of them. Marcus found himself startling at car backfires, checking exits in every room, sleeping with his back to the wall. The hypervigilance that had kept him alive in hostile territory served no purpose in suburban Tennessee, but his nervous system hadn't received the memo. Sarah would find him at 3 in the morning, standing guard at the living room window, scanning the empty street for threats that existed only in his combat-trained reflexes. Dr. Elizabeth Carver had seen this pattern countless times in her 23 years at the Nashville VA Medical Center. At 58, she dedicated her career to treating the invisible wounds that soldiers carried home. Her own father had served in Vietnam, and she'd grown up watching him struggle with demons he could never name. That experience had shaped her calling to provide the understanding and care that her father's generation had been denied. The VA Medical Center was a sprawling complex of tan brick buildings connected by covered walkways. Inside, the hallways smelled of disinfectant and floor wax, with motivational posters sharing wall space with notices about benefits and support groups. Dr. Carver's office was on the third floor of the main building, a modest space she'd personalized, with plants, family photos, and a bookshelf filled with both medical texts and fiction. She believed that understanding the human spirit required more than clinical knowledge. Her staff respected her deeply. Nurse Patricia Williams, a 20-year veteran of the VA system, often said that Dr. Carver had the rare gift of seeing the person behind the uniform, the individual beyond the diagnosis. Patricia, herself the widow of a Marine who died in Iraq, brought her own understanding of military families to her work. At 45, she'd raised 3 children while managing the complex emotions of military life, and her empathy for veteran struggles was both professional and deeply personal. Dr. James Morrison, the hospital administrator, ran the facility with military precision, which made sense, given his own background as a Navy medical officer. He understood the unique challenges of treating veterans, from navigating the labyrinth of VA bureaucracy to managing the complex relationships between military service and civilian healthcare. His office walls displayed his own service photos, alongside certifications and commendations for his administrative work. Marcus had been coming to the VA for routine checkups since discharge 6 weeks ago. The appointments were part of his transition process: physical exams, psychological evaluations, and discussions about benefits and career counseling. Dr. Carver had been impressed by his military bearing and obvious intelligence, but she'd also noticed the telltale signs of someone carrying invisible burdens. During their previous meetings, Marcus had been forthcoming about his adjustment struggles. He'd served as a staff sergeant in a special operations unit, leading reconnaissance missions in some of the most dangerous regions of Afghanistan. His final deployment had been particularly challenging: 6 months in a remote forward operating base where his team gathered intelligence on weapon smuggling routes through the Hindu Kush Mountains. It was during that deployment that Marcus first noticed something wasn't quite right. Not with his mission that had gone according to plan, but with his health. There had been an incident, something he'd reported through proper channels, but hadn't discussed in detail with anyone, not even Sarah. His team had discovered an abandoned laboratory in a cave complex near the Pakistan border. The intelligence suggested it had been used for chemical weapons research, though by whom remained unclear. Marcus kept a detailed journal during his deployments, a habit he developed early in his career as a way to process the stress and maintain his mental clarity. The leather-bound notebook was filled with his careful handwriting, documenting everything from tactical observations to personal reflections. The entries from his final weeks overseas showed increasing concern about exposure to unknown substances during the laboratory investigation. The team had followed proper protocols, wearing protective gear and conducting preliminary tests before entering the facility. But something had gone wrong with the ventilation system in Marcus's mask during the initial sweep. He breathed unfiltered air for perhaps 30 seconds before his team leader noticed and got him to safety. The incident was reported, medical tests were conducted, and he'd been cleared for duty after showing no immediate symptoms. Now, 6 weeks after returning home, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something from that mission had followed him back to Tennessee. The nightmares were bad enough, fragmented images of dark tunnels and unknown dangers, but there were physical symptoms too. Fatigue that sleep couldn't cure, headaches that came and went without pattern, and now this growth on his neck. Sarah had noticed a lump first, running her fingers through his hair one evening as they watched television. It was small then, barely noticeable, but it had grown steadily larger over the past 3 weeks. Marcus had convinced himself it was nothing serious: stress, poor diet, the general toll of 2 decades in the military. But Sarah's growing concern had finally prompted him to schedule this appointment with Dr. Carver. The drive to Nashville took 45 minutes from Clarksville, following Highway 41A through rolling hills and farmland. Sarah had wanted to come with him, but Marcus had insisted on going alone. Some part of him, the soldier part that had learned to compartmentalize fear and push through uncertainty, believed he could handle whatever Dr. Carver might discover. The DGU Via Medical Center's parking lot was already busy at 8 in the morning. Marcus found a space near the main entrance and sat in his truck for a moment, watching other veterans make their way into the building. Some walked with visible injuries, limps, prosthetics, canes. Others, like himself, carried invisible wounds that were harder to diagnose but no less real. The October air was crisp, with the first hint of autumn's chill. Leaves were just beginning to turn on the trees that lined the medical center's campus. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter as he walked toward the entrance, his military bearings still evident in his measured stride and alert posture. The automatic doors opened with a soft whoosh, and he stepped into the familiar environment of the VA system, a place that felt both foreign and somehow like home. Dr. Carver's office was exactly as he remembered it from his previous visits. The examining table was covered with fresh paper, and morning sunlight streamed through windows that offered a view of the hospital's courtyard garden. She greeted him with the same professional warmth she'd shown before, but Marcus noticed something different in her expression, a subtle tension that suggested she'd reviewed his file and had concerns of her own. The routine part of the examination went smoothly. Blood pressure, heart rate, reflexes all normal. But when Dr. Carver's fingers found the growth on his neck, her professional composure shifted almost imperceptibly. She spent longer than usual palpating the area, her touch careful, but insistent. Marcus could see the concentration in her expression, the way her brow furrowed as she tried to understand what she was feeling. That was when Nurse Patricia entered the room to assist with the examination. Patricia had worked with Dr. Carver long enough to read her nonverbal cues, and she immediately sensed that this case was different. The growth was unlike anything either medical professional had encountered, warm to the touch, with an unusual density that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. As Dr. Carver prepared to take a closer look at the mysterious lump, Marcus felt his anxiety spike. Something deep in his soldier's instincts was warning him that they were approaching a line they shouldn't cross. But he'd spent 20 years following orders and trusting medical professionals. He'd learned to push down his instincts when they conflicted with protocol and procedure. Neither Marcus nor Dr. Carver could have imagined that the next few minutes would change everything they thought they knew about medicine, military service, and the true cost of defending one's country. Dr. Carver adjusted her examination light and leaned closer to study the growth on Marcus's neck. What she saw defied her medical training and 23 years of experience treating veterans. The lump wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. The growth appeared to have its own blood supply, with visible veins pulsing beneath Marcus's skin in patterns that didn't match his cardiovascular system. The surface felt warm, almost hot, and seemed to respond to her touch by growing firmer. Most disturbing of all, she could swear she felt movement inside it, as if something were actively shifting beneath the skin. "Marcus," she said carefully, her voice maintaining professional calm despite her growing alarm, "I need you to tell me more about that incident you mentioned in your file. The one with the laboratory." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd hoped to avoid discussing the details, but Dr. Carver's tone made it clear this wasn't a casual inquiry. "It was classified, Doc. I can't. I'm not asking for operational details." She interrupted gently but firmly. "I need to understand what you might have been exposed to. This growth isn't like anything I've seen before." Nurse Patricia moved closer, her own concern evident as she observed the examination. She'd assisted with thousands of medical procedures, But something about this case was setting off every alarm bell in her experienced intuition. The growth seemed to pulse more rapidly when Dr. Carver applied pressure, almost as if it were responding to stimulation. Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. My team was investigating an abandoned research facility. Intelligence suggested it was being used for chemical weapons development. We followed all safety protocols, but there was a malfunction with my protective gear. I breathed unfiltered. Air for maybe 30 seconds. What did you see in the facility? Dr. Carver asked, her fingers still carefully examining the growth. Laboratory, equipment, computers that had been wiped clean. And these containers, Marcus paused, his face growing pale. They looked like biological samples. Some kind of organic material and preservation fluid. The whole place felt wrong, like death itself had a smell. Dr. Carver exchanged a meaningful glance with Patricia. Both women had enough experience with military medicine to know that soldiers were often exposed to dangers that never appeared in official reports. The growth's characteristics were becoming more pronounced as the examination continued, and both medical professionals were beginning to suspect they were dealing with something far beyond conventional medicine. Marcus, I'm going to need to apply some pressure to get a better sense of the structure underneath, Dr. Carver explained. This might be uncomfortable. Marcus nodded, his military training overriding his growing anxiety. He'd endured much worse than medical discomfort during his service. Do what you need to do, Doc. Dr. Carver positioned her fingers on either side of the growth and began to apply gentle but firm pressure. The response was immediate and horrifying. The lump seemed to rupture internally, not breaking the skin but collapsing in a way that sent something moving rapidly beneath Marcus's flesh. Marcus convulsed as if he'd been electrocuted, his back arching off the examination table. A sound emerged from his throat that was part scream, part something else entirely, a guttural noise that no human vocal cords should have been able to produce. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites, and his entire body began to convulse with seizure-like intensity. Get the crash cart, Dr. Carver shouted to Patricia, who was already moving toward the emergency equipment. But even as she called for standard medical intervention, Dr. Carver knew they were facing something that wouldn't respond to conventional treatment. Marcus's convulsions were unlike any seizure either medical professional had witnessed. His muscles weren't just contracting, they appeared to be restructuring themselves. His shoulders broadened visibly, his arms elongated, and his skin began to take on a darker, almost grayish hue. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable, as if his very cellular structure was being rewritten in real time. The medical equipment in the room began to malfunction. The blood pressure monitor started displaying impossible readings. The heart rate monitor showed patterns that suggested multiple heartbeats, and the overhead lights flickered with electrical interference that had no obvious source. Dr. Carver, we need to evacuate, Patricia called out, her voice tight with professional training warring against primal fear. The situation was escalating beyond anything in their emergency protocols, but Dr. Carver couldn't abandon her patient, no matter how inexplicable his condition had become. She grabbed a sedative from the emergency kit and prepared to inject it, even though she had no idea if conventional medications would have any effect on whatever was happening to Marcus Dodd. As she approached with the syringe, Marcus's eyes suddenly snapped open, but they weren't his eyes anymore. The irises had darkened to an almost black color, and there was an intelligence behind them that seemed both ancient and utterly alien. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that reverberated through the room like subsonics. The others, he said, each word seeming to come from multiple vocal cords simultaneously. They're waking up. Can you feel them? They're all waking up. The words sent ice through Dr. Carver's veins. The clinical part of her mind was cataloging symptoms and trying to formulate a diagnosis. But a deeper part of her consciousness was screaming warnings that this was beyond medicine, beyond science as she understood it. Marcus's transformation continued with horrifying rapidity. His fingernails had grown longer and harder, more like claws than human nails. His facial structure was subtly altering, cheekbones more pronounced, jawline more angular, as if his skull itself was reshaping. The changes were happening too quickly for any known biological process. Hospital alarms began sounding throughout the building as the electrical disturbances spread beyond the examination room. Dr. Morrison's voice came over the intercom, calling for emergency protocols that the VA Medical Center had never had to implement. Patricia managed to reach the emergency communication system and called for immediate assistance. But how could she explain what they were witnessing? How could she tell the response team that a routine examination had triggered what appeared to be a metamorphosis straight out of science fiction? Dr. Carver made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. Instead of waiting for help that might not understand the situation, she reached for Marcus's medical chart and began documenting everything she observed. If this was some kind of biological weapon or experimental pathogen, the medical community needed to know. The world needed to know. Marcus's chart contained standard information service history, deployment records, medical evaluations. But tucked into the file was a document she'd never noticed before, stamped with classifications and government seals that suggested this case was already known to authorities she'd never been informed about. The document was partially redacted, but the visible portions mentioned Project Metamorphosis and contained references to biological enhancement protocols. There were medical codes she didn't recognize and contact numbers for agencies that didn't officially exist. It was clear that Marcus's condition wasn't as unprecedented as she'd believed. As if responding to her discovery, Marcus's convulsions suddenly stopped. He lay perfectly still on the examination table, his breathing deep and regular, but somehow different, more efficient, as if his lungs were processing oxygen with enhanced capability. When he opened his eyes again, they held a clarity that was both reassuring and terrifying. "Dr. Carver," he said, his voice still carrying those strange harmonics but more controlled now, "you need to call my wife. Tell her to take Emma and leave town. Tell her to go somewhere remote and wait for my call." "Marcus, what's happening to you?" she asked, a medical training warring with maternal instincts that told her to protect this man who was clearly in distress. "Something I volunteered for," he replied, his words carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "Something I thought I could control. But they lied about everything, the purpose, the risks, the consequences. And now it's too late to stop what's coming." The examination room door burst open as hospital security arrived, but they stopped dead when they saw Marcus. Even in the preliminary stages of his transformation, he no longer looked entirely human. The security guards' hands moved instinctively to their weapons, though they had no idea if conventional firearms would be effective against whatever Marcus was becoming. Dr. Carver stood protectively near her patient, her medical oath overriding every survival instinct. Whatever was happening to Marcus Hayes, he was still her responsibility. And if his condition was connected to his military service, then the government had questions to answer about what they'd done to their own soldiers. The hospital security team had trained for many emergency scenarios, but nothing in their protocols covered a patient undergoing what appeared to be a real-time biological transformation. Guards Johnson and Martinez stood in the examination room doorway, their hands hovering near their weapons, while their minds struggled to process what they were witnessing. Dr. Carver moved with practiced efficiency despite the unprecedented nature of the crisis. She quickly assembled emergency medications while issuing rapid-fire instructions to Nurse Patricia, who was documenting vital signs that defied medical explanation. Marcus's heart rate had stabilized at an impossible 90 beats per minute. Despite his massive physical exertion, and his blood pressure readings suggested a cardiovascular system operating far beyond normal human parameters. "We need to establish in 4-line," Dr. Carver called out, though she wasn't certain conventional fluids would be appropriate for whatever Marcus was becoming. "And someone needs to contact Dr. Morrison immediately. This situation requires administrative oversight." Marcus remained conscious, but seemed to be fighting an internal battle between his human consciousness and whatever the transformation process was doing to his brain chemistry. His enhanced vocal cords made communication difficult, each word emerging with an otherworldly resonance that reverberated through the examination room. "Doc," he managed to say, his voice distorted but intelligible, "you need to listen carefully. My family can't be here when the government arrives. They'll try to take Emma." "Why would they want your daughter?" Dr. Carver asked while continuing her medical assessment. Marcus's skin temperature was rising beyond fever levels, but he showed no signs of distress from the heat. "Because she carries the same genetic markers," Marcus replied, his words becoming clearer as he adapted to his altered physiology. The project wasn't just about enhancing soldiers. It was about creating a new kind of human. Emma represents the next generation. The implications of his statement sent cold dread through Dr. Carver's professional composure. If Marcus was telling the truth, then his transformation wasn't an accident or unintended consequence. It was part of a deliberate program to alter human biology. And his 17-year-old daughter was apparently a target for the same process. Nurse Patricia was already on the phone with Dr. Morrison when the first government vehicles began arriving in the hospital parking lot. Through the examination room window, they could see black SUVs with government plates and occupants in dark suits who moved with military precision. The response was far too rapid and organized to be coincidental. They were monitoring the situation, Marcus observed, his enhanced senses apparently allowing him to detect the approaching personnel before anyone else noticed them. "Probably had sensors tracking my biological signatures since I left active duty." Dr. Morrison burst into the examination room, his administrative calm shattered by the reports he'd received from his staff. As a former Navy medical officer, he dealt with classified medical situations before, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for the scene before him. "Dr. Carver, what exactly happened here?" he demanded, though his eyes were fixed on Marcus, whose continued transformation was becoming more pronounced by the minute. "A routine examination triggered some kind of biological response," she replied tersely. "But this isn't random, Dr. Morrison. There are classified documents in his file that suggest government knowledge of his condition." Before Dr. Morrison could respond, Agent Rebecca Torres entered the examination room with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to taking control of complex situations. She was in her early 40s, with sharp features and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Her credentials identified her as CDC, but her demeanor suggested military or intelligence background. "I'm Agent Torres with the Centers for Disease Control," she announced, though her focus was entirely on Marcus rather than the medical staff. "This facility is now under federal quarantine protocols. I need everyone except Dr. Carver to evacuate immediately." "This is my hospital," Dr. Morrison protested, his administrative authority warring with the obvious federal override. "I have a responsibility to my patient and staff." "Your patient is now classified as a potential biological hazard," Agent Torres replied with the mechanical efficiency of someone delivering a prepared statement. "Dr. Carver will remain as primary medical consultant, but all other personnel must maintain a safe distance until we understand the nature of the contamination." Marcus watched the exchange with growing clarity, his enhanced cognitive abilities apparently allowing him to process information more rapidly than before. "Agent Torres," he said, his distorted voice carrying unmistakable recognition. "You're not CDC. You're military intelligence. Probably the same unit that briefed my team before the laboratory mission. Agent Torres's professional mask slipped almost imperceptibly, confirming Marcus's suspicion. Staff Sergeant Hayes, your transformation is proceeding within acceptable parameters. We need you to remain calm while we assess the situation. Acceptable parameters? Dr. Carver interrupted with rising anger. This man is undergoing some kind of biological metamorphosis, and you're talking about it like it's routine medical procedure? Because for us, it is, Agent Torres replied with brutal honesty. Staff Sergeant Hayes volunteered for an experimental enhancement program. What you're witnessing is the activation of dormant genetic modifications that were introduced during his final deployment. The revelation hit Dr. Carver like a physical blow. Marcus hadn't been accidentally exposed to biological weapons. He'd been deliberately infected with genetic modification agents as part of a military experiment, and the government had known this was going to happen. Marcus's transformation entered a new phase as his skeletal structure began subtle but visible changes. His frame was expanding, muscles developing in ways that suggested optimization for strength and speed beyond normal human capacity. Yet his face retained enough of his original features to remain recognizably human, though enhanced in ways that were both fascinating and terrifying. The others, Marcus said suddenly, his enhanced hearing apparently detecting something the rest of them couldn't perceive. I can sense them. Other subjects from the program. They're experiencing the same activation. Agent Torres immediately activated a secure communication device. Control, this is Torres. Confirm status of all metamorphosis. Subjects, we may have a synchronized activation event. The response was immediate and clearly disturbing based on Agent Torres's expression. Understood. Initiating containment protocols for all affected facilities. Dr. Carver realized with growing horror that Marcus wasn't the only person undergoing this transformation. There were others, veterans who'd been subjected to the same experimental program, and they were all changing simultaneously. The scope of the government conspiracy was far larger than she'd imagined. Meanwhile, 45 minutes away in Clarksville, Sarah Hayes was teaching her third-grade class when the phone call came. The school secretary's voice was tight with concern as she relayed the message from the VA Medical Center. Mrs. Hayes needed to come immediately. There had been a medical emergency involving her husband. Sarah's hands trembled as she gathered her things and arranged for a substitute teacher. The drive to Nashville felt like the longest 45 minutes of her life, but she had no idea that the emergency involving Marcus was about to change not just their family, but potentially the future of human evolution itself. As she pulled into the VA Medical Center parking lot, Sarah noticed the unusual number of government vehicles and wondered why federal agents would be interested in a routine medical appointment. She couldn't have imagined that by the time she reached the hospital entrance, her husband would no longer be entirely human, and their daughter would be the next target for a program that treated human beings as genetic experiments. Sarah Hayes had never been more grateful for her teacher's instincts than when she decided to bring Emma with her to the hospital. Something in the school secretary's voice had triggered a maternal alarm that told her not to leave her daughter alone, even though she couldn't have articulated why. Emma sat in the passenger seat of their Honda Civic, her 17-year-old composure masking the same anxiety that was eating at her mother. She'd grown up as a military child, learning to read between the lines when adults spoke in careful, measured tones about situations they couldn't fully explain. "Mom, what do you think happened to Dad?" Emma asked as they pulled into the VA Medical Center's parking lot. The unusual number of government vehicles didn't escape her notice. She'd learned to recognize the signs of official interest from years of military life. "I don't know, sweetheart," Sarah replied honestly, "but we'll figure it out together." Inside the hospital, Agent Torres was coordinating what appeared to be a small invasion force. Federal agents had cordoned off the entire third floor, and Medical personnel were being questioned about their observations during Marcus's examination. The official story was a potential biological contamination requiring CDC oversight, but the heavy security presence suggested something far more serious. Dr. Carver remained with Marcus, ostensibly as his primary physician, but actually as the only medical professional the government trusted to understand the situation. She'd been briefed on the basic parameters of Project Metamorphosis, enough to provide appropriate care, but not enough to fully comprehend the scope of what she was witnessing. Marcus's transformation had stabilized somewhat, though his new physiology was still adapting to its enhanced capabilities. His hearing had become acute enough to detect conversations throughout the building. His vision had sharpened to allow him to see details at distances that would challenge binoculars. And his muscle density had increased to provide strength levels that were just short of superhuman. "Dr. Carver," he said quietly, his voice still carrying those strange harmonics, but more controlled now, "my wife and daughter just entered the building. Agent Torres is planning to detain them." Dr. Carver felt a surge of protective anger. "Over. My dead body. They're not part of this military experiment." "Emma is," Marcus replied with the pain of terrible knowledge. "She inherited the genetic markers that make the transformation possible. That's why they allowed me to marry Sarah, why they monitored our family for 17 years. Emma was always part of the plan." The revelation struck Dr. Carver like a physical blow. The government hadn't just experimented on soldiers. They'd orchestrated marriages and monitored children to create the next generation of test subjects. The scope of the conspiracy was beyond anything she'd imagined possible in America. Meanwhile, Sarah and Emma were being directed through increasingly complex security checkpoints as they tried to reach Marcus's room. Each checkpoint involved more questions, more paperwork, and more officials who seemed to know far more about their family than a medical emergency should warrant. Emma's sharp intelligence was picking up on details that troubled her. The agents asking questions knew things about her father's military service that she'd never heard discussed at home. They asked about her own health history, her academic performance, and whether she'd experienced any unusual physical symptoms. "Recently, excuse me," Emma said to one of the agents with the polite firmness she'd learned from watching her mother handle military bureaucracy. "Why do you need to know about my biology grades for my father's medical emergency?" The agent's hesitation told Emma everything she needed to know. This wasn't about her father's health. This was about her dot in the examination room. Marcus was becoming increasingly agitated as his enhanced senses tracked his family's movement. Through the hospital, he could hear Emma's voice, detect the stress in Sarah's breathing patterns, and sense the growing tension as they were delayed and questioned. "Agent Torres," he said with barely contained threat in his altered voice, "if your people harm my family in any way, you'll discover exactly how enhanced these modifications have made me." Agent Torres had been briefing her superiors on the situation, and the conversations were going well. Other facilities around the country were reporting similar transformations among Project Metamorphosis subjects. The synchronized activation suggested that the program had built-in triggers that the current administration didn't fully control. "Staff Sergeant Hayes," she said carefully, "your family's safety depends on their cooperation with our security protocols. Emma's genetic profile makes her valuable to national security." "Emma's genetic profile makes her my daughter," Marcus replied with finality. "And I won't let you turn her into what you turn me into." Dr. Carver was reviewing Marcus's complete medical file, including the classified sections that Agent Torres had been forced to reveal. The documents painted a picture of a program that had identified children with specific genetic markers years before recruiting their parents for military service. Emma Hayes wasn't a coincidental target. She'd been monitored since birth. The file contained detailed genetic analyses, psychological evaluations, and developmental assessments that span Emma's entire life. Report cards, medical checkups, even family photographs had been cataloged as part of an ongoing study. The government had been preparing to activate Emma's latent modifications when she reached physical maturity. "This is monstrous," Dr. Carver whispered as she read the clinical descriptions of how the transformation process would affect a 17-year-old girl. "You've been experimenting on children. We've been preparing for the future of human evolution," Agent Torres corrected with the detached professionalism of someone who'd rationalized unconscionable actions. Emma represents the next phase of the program subjects who can be modified from adolescence rather than adulthood, allowing for more complete integration of enhanced capabilities. Marcus's enhanced hearing picked up another crucial detail hidden in his personal effects was an encrypted USB drive that contained video footage from his final deployment. The footage showed other members of his unit undergoing preliminary stages of transformation, including detailed documentation of the laboratory where they've been exposed to the modification agents. "Dr. Carver," he said urgently, "check my civilian clothes. There's a USB drive in my jacket pocket. It contains evidence of what they did to my unit." Dr. Carver found the drive and immediately understood its significance. If the footage showed other soldiers experiencing similar transformations, it would prove that Marcus's condition wasn't an isolated incident but part of a systematic program to modify American military personnel. As Sarah and Emma finally approached the restricted area where Marcus was being held, Agent Torres received an update that changed everything. Other Project Metamorphosis subjects weren't just transforming, some were escaping from government facilities. The program that had been designed to create enhanced soldiers was producing enhanced individuals who refused to remain under government control. The situation was about to become far more complex than anyone had anticipated. Dr. Carver's hands trembled as she inserted the USB drive into her computer terminal. Despite Agent Torres' sharp protests, the encrypted files required military clearance codes, but Marcus's enhanced memory had retained every password and access code from his years of classified service. "Try Metamorphosis Alpha 779, Marcus instructed, his altered voice carrying an urgency that overrode all protocol considerations. The files opened to reveal footage that would haunt Dr. Carver for the rest of her life. The video showed Marcus's unit exploring the abandoned laboratory in Afghanistan, but the perspective was from Marcus's helmet camera, providing an intimate view of events that had been classified beyond top secret. The laboratory wasn't abandoned. It was a fully operational research facility disguised as a weapons cache. American scientists were working alongside international researchers to develop biological modification agents that could enhance human performance. Marcus's unit hadn't stumbled upon enemy weapons research. They'd discovered their own government's most classified program. The footage showed other soldiers from Marcus's unit volunteering for preliminary injections after being told they were receiving advanced immunizations. The men trusted their commanding officers, believed they were protecting national security, and had no idea they were becoming test subjects for genetic modification experiments. "My God," Dr. Carver whispered as she watched young soldiers, barely older than Emma, willingly submit to procedures that would fundamentally alter their biology. They volunteered because they trusted their chain of command. Agent Torres moved to shut down the computer, but Marcus's enhanced reflexes allowed him to intercept her with speed that surprised everyone in the room. His hand closed around her wrist with carefully controlled strength that could have easily broken bones. "Let her watch," he said with quiet authority. "She needs to understand what we were promised versus what we received." The video continued to show the aftermath of the initial modifications. Some soldiers experienced beneficial changes, enhanced strength, improved reflexes, accelerated healing. But others suffered catastrophic failures, psychological breaks, physical deformities, and in several cases, complete loss of human consciousness. Sarah and Emma finally reached the examination room just as the most damning footage began to play. Sarah's gasp of horror at seeing her transformed husband was immediately followed by her focus on the screen, where she could see the truth about Marcus's final deployment. Emma's reaction was different. Rather than horror or fear, she seemed to recognize something in the footage that the adults missed. Her expression showed understanding mixed with a strange familiarity, as if the genetic modifications her father was displaying triggered memories she shouldn't possess. "Emma," Marcus said softly, his enhanced senses detecting subtle changes in his daughter's physiology. "How long have you been experiencing unusual symptoms?" Emma's composed facade cracked slightly. "The headache started about a month ago. And sometimes I can hear things that are too far away. I thought it was just stress from senior year." Dr. Carver immediately understood the implications. Emma's modifications were activating naturally as she reached physical maturity, triggered by the same biological processes that govern normal adolescent development. The government hadn't needed to inject her with anything. The genetic changes had been inherited from her father and were programmed to activate automatically. Agent Torres attempted to regain control of the situation. "This information is classified beyond your clearance levels. I need all unauthorized personnel to—" "Shut up," Sarah interrupted with maternal fury that surprised everyone, including herself. "You people have been experimenting on my family for 17 years. My daughter has been your lab rat since birth, and my husband trusted you enough to volunteer for modifications that turned him into something that isn't entirely human anymore." The raw emotion in Sarah's voice seemed to reach Marcus in ways that medical intervention couldn't. His enhanced features softened slightly, and for a moment, he looked more like the man who'd left for deployment than the partially transformed being he'd become. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying love despite its otherworldly harmonics, "I need you to understand that everything I did was to protect you and Emma. I believed them when they said the modifications would make me a better soldier, a better protector for our family." Dr. Carver was analyzing the research notes contained in the USB files. The documents revealed that Project Metamorphosis was designed to create a new branch of human evolution-enhanced individuals who could survive in hostile environments, resist biological weapons, and operate with capabilities that exceeded normal human limitations. But the program had a darker purpose. The enhanced individuals were meant to be controlled through psychological conditioning and genetic triggers that would ensure their loyalty to whoever possessed the activation codes. The government hadn't just created super soldiers. They'd created a potential army of enhanced humans who could be turned on or off like biological weapons. "Emma," Dr. Carver said urgently, "the documents suggest that your genetic profile is different from your father's. The modifications in your system are more advanced, designed to integrate with your natural development rather than overriding it." Emma processed this information with the rapid comprehension that seemed to be part of her enhanced cognitive abilities. "You're saying I'm not becoming a monster like the government intended. I'm becoming something better." "Not a monster," Marcus corrected with fierce paternal pride. "Something evolved. Something they can't control because you're choosing your own path." Agent Torres was receiving increasingly urgent communications from her superiors. Other Project Metamorphosis subjects were not only escaping containment but actively seeking each other out. The enhanced individuals seemed to be forming some kind of network, possibly through telepathic abilities that hadn't been anticipated by the program's designers. "We have reports of enhanced subjects converging on population centers," she announced grimly. "Some appear to be helping other subjects escape government custody. The situation is escalating beyond our containment capabilities." Dr. Carver realized that the transformation spreading among Project Metamorphosis subjects represented a fundamental shift in human evolution. The government had intended to create controlled super soldiers, but instead, they triggered the emergence of a new type of human consciousness, one that valued freedom over control and family over institutional loyalty. The most crucial document in the USB files was a research paper by Dr. Alan Voss, the original designer of Project Metamorphosis. His notes indicated that he built safeguards into the genetic modifications, ways to reverse or stabilize the transformation process if subjects chose to retain their humanity rather than embrace full enhancement. "There's a way to help you," Dr. Carver told Marcus, though she wasn't certain whether he would want to return to fully human status. Dr. Voss created reversal protocols for subjects who wanted to maintain their original biology. Marcus's enhanced senses were detecting something that alarmed him, the approach of additional government forces, but also something else. Other enhanced individuals were nearby, and they were coming to help rather than hinder his family's escape. The real battle for Emma's future was about to begin. Dr. Alan Voss had been living in a cabin in the remote mountains of Montana for the past 3 years, ever since he discovered the true scope of how his research was being used. The brilliant geneticist who designed Project Metamorphosis as a medical advancement to help soldiers recover from battlefield injuries had watched in horror as his work was weaponized into a program for creating controllable superhumans. His encrypted communications with Dr. Carver came through a secure network he'd established for monitoring Project Metamorphosis subjects. When he learned that Staff Sergeant Hayes' transformation had been triggered and that the man's daughter was entering natural activation, Dr. Voss knew the time had come to emerge from hiding. The antidote formula he developed was hidden in his personal research files, a complex genetic therapy that could stabilize enhanced subjects at any point in their transformation. The treatment could reverse the changes completely, halt the process while retaining beneficial modifications, or allow subjects to complete their evolution while maintaining full human consciousness and free will. But administering the antidote required precise timing and carried significant risks. If given too early, it might prevent beneficial adaptations that could save the subject's life. If given too late, the genetic modifications might have progressed beyond the point where human consciousness could be preserved. In the VA medical center, Emma's transformation was accelerating in response to the stress of the situation. Unlike her father's violent and traumatic change, her modifications were integrating smoothly with her natural development. Her hearing had become acute enough to detect conversations throughout the building. Her reflexes had quickened to near superhuman levels, and her cognitive processing had enhanced to allow her to understand complex scientific concepts with remarkable clarity. "I can feel others," Emma announced suddenly, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated with her father's altered tones. "Enhanced people. They're coming here, but not to hurt us. They want to help." Agent Torres immediately activated her tactical team, but Sarah Hayes had reached the end of her patience with government interference in her family's life. The elementary school teacher, who'd spent years being polite to military officials and accepting official explanations, suddenly revealed a protective fierceness that surprised everyone in the room. "You people have done enough," Sarah declared, positioning herself between Agent Torres and her family. "My husband volunteered to serve his country, not to become your laboratory experiment. And my daughter has been your unwilling test subject since birth. This ends now." Dr. Carver was communicating directly with Dr. Voss through the secure network, transmitting Emma's genetic profile and transformation data in real time. Dr. Voss's response was both encouraging and alarming. Emma's modifications were proceeding exactly as he'd hoped when he designed the advanced protocols, but she represented something unprecedented in human evolution. "Dr. Carver," Dr. Voss's voice came through the encrypted communication channel. "Emma isn't just inheriting her father's enhancements. She's developing capabilities that we never programmed into the original modifications. Her genetic profile suggests she's evolving beyond our original parameters. The implications were staggering. Emma wasn't just becoming an enhanced human, she was becoming something genuinely new, a bridge between current humanity and whatever humans might become in the future. Her transformation was guided by natural evolutionary processes rather than artificial genetic programming. Marcus's enhanced senses detected the arrival of 3 other enhanced individuals in the hospital parking lot. Unlike the government's heavy-handed approach, these former soldiers moved with the careful precision of people who understood they were no longer entirely human, but retained their commitment to protecting others. "Shara," Marcus said urgently, his transformed features showing the strain of divided loyalties. "I need you to make a choice. Dr. Voss can give me the antidote that might restore my original biology, but it could also kill me. Or we can accept what we've become and focus on protecting Emma while she completes her own transformation." Sarah looked at her transformed husband and their daughter, who was becoming something magnificent and terrifying, and realized that the choice wasn't really about genetics or government programs. It was about love, family, and the courage to embrace an uncertain future together. "I married you for better or worse," she said with quiet determination. "I don't care what you look like or what abilities you have. You're still the man I love. And Emma is still our daughter. We face this together, whatever it means." Emma's transformation reached a new phase as her emotional connection to her parents triggered deeper genetic activations. Her enhanced empathy allowed her to sense the fear and love radiating from everyone in the room. But more importantly, she could feel the network of enhanced individuals who were linked through abilities that transcended normal human communication. "Dad," she said with wisdom that seemed beyond her 17 years, "the antidote isn't about returning to what we were. It's about choosing what we become. Dr. Voss designed it to give us control over our own evolution." Agent Torres received an update. That changed the entire dynamic of the situation. Enhanced subjects weren't just escaping government facilities. They were systematically exposing Project Metamorphosis to the media and international oversight organizations. The conspiracy that had operated in secret for decades was about to become public knowledge. "We have a problem," she announced grimly. "Enhanced subjects are broadcasting evidence of the program to news organizations worldwide. The story will break within hours." Dr. Carver realized that the exposure of Project Metamorphosis would fundamentally change how humanity understood its own potential for evolution. The enhanced individuals weren't trying to conquer or control normal humans. They were trying to free themselves and others from government control while demonstrating that genetic enhancement could be pursued ethically and voluntarily. The 3 enhanced individuals who'd arrived at the hospital weren't coming as enemies or allies of the government. They were coming as family fellow veterans who'd undergone similar transformations and wanted to help Marcus and Emma navigate their new capabilities without losing their humanity. As the confrontation in the examination room reached its climax, Emma made a decision that would determine not only her family's future, but potentially the future of human evolution itself. She chose to embrace her transformation while demanding the right to control her own development, setting a precedent that would echo through generations of enhanced individuals to come. The battle for the future of humanity was about to move beyond the confines of the VA Medical Center and into the broader world, where the choices made by one military family would determine whether genetic enhancement would be used to control people or to free them. The 3 enhanced individuals who entered the VA Medical Center moved with the coordinated precision of a military unit. But their purpose wasn't what anyone expected. Leading them was a woman whose features bore an unmistakable resemblance to Marcus Hayes, the same strong jawline, the same intelligent eyes, though hers were enhanced with the golden flecks that marked successful genetic integration. "Hello, brother," she said as she entered the examination room. her voice carrying the same harmonic resonances that marked Marcus's transformed speech. Marcus stared in shock at the woman who'd just addressed him as family. "I don't have a sister." "You do now," Agent Torres said quietly, her professional composure finally cracking completely. "Marcus, meet Rebecca Torres, your sister. Given up for adoption when she was 3 years old. I've been protecting your family for the past 17 years because protecting you meant protecting her." The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. Agent Torres wasn't a government operative trying to control the situation. She was a sister trying to protect her adopted family from a program that had already claimed her biological brother. Her access to classified information, her knowledge of Project Metamorphosis, and her presence at Marcus's transformation weren't coincidental. Rebecca Torres had undergone her own transformation 5 years earlier as part of an earlier phase of Project Metamorphosis. Her enhancements were more subtle than Marcus's, designed for intelligence gathering and long-term infiltration rather than combat applications. She'd used her position within the government to monitor and protect Marcus's family while working to expose the program from within. The adoption records were sealed as part of Project Metamorphosis, Rebecca explained, her enhanced cognitive abilities allowing her to process and explain complex information rapidly. Our biological parents carried genetic markers that made their children ideal candidates for enhancement. The government separated us deliberately, using me as an early test subject while monitoring Marcus for future recruitment. Dr. Carver was reviewing the original test subject file that Rebecca had brought with her, a document that revealed the true scope of Project Metamorphosis's manipulation of American families. The program hadn't just recruited soldiers. It had identified genetically compatible families decades in advance and orchestrated their lives to produce optimal test subjects. "My God," Dr. Carver whispered as she read the clinical documentation. "They've been breeding enhanced humans for 3 generations. Marcus wasn't randomly selected. He was specifically bred for this program." The file contained genetic profiles dating back to Marcus and Rebecca's grandparents, showing how their family line had been monitored and guided for decades. Marriages had been encouraged or discouraged based on genetic compatibility. Career paths had been influenced to ensure military service. And even Sarah's relationship with Marcus had been observed and approved by government psychologist. Sarah felt sick as the implications became clear. "You're telling me that my marriage was arranged? That Emma was planned by the government before she was even conceived?" "Not arranged," Rebecca corrected gently. "Facilitated. Your relationship with Marcus was genuine, but the circumstances that brought you together were influenced by people who understood your genetic compatibility. Emma represents the 3rd generation of guided evolution, a child whose enhancements were designed to be integrated from birth rather than forced onto adult biology. Emma processed this information with the enhanced comprehension that was part of her developing abilities. Rather than feeling violated or manipulated, she seemed to understand something that the adults were missing. "It doesn't matter how I got these abilities," she said with remarkable maturity. "What matters is how I choose to use them. They tried to control our evolution, but they gave us the tools to control our own destiny." Marcus was struggling with rage at the scope of the deception that had shaped his entire life. Everything he believed about his service, his marriage, and his family had been influenced by people who saw him as experimental material rather than a human being. But Rebecca's presence offered something he hadn't expected: family connection. Despite the artificial circumstances of their separation, her transformation was more stable than his, demonstrating that the enhancement process could be controlled and directed rather than endured. "Marcus," Rebecca said, using the telepathic abilities that came with advanced enhancement, "I need you to understand that everything the government told you about the program was designed to maintain control. But Dr. Voss built something into our genetic modifications that they never discovered. She accessed the encrypted files on her personal device and displayed genetic analysis that revealed the true purpose of Dr. Voss's safeguards, the antidote. Formula wasn't just designed to reverse unwanted changes. It was designed to free enhanced individuals from psychological control mechanisms built into the original modifications. The government thought they were creating super soldiers who would follow orders without question, Rebecca explained. But Dr. Voss programmed our enhancements to increase empathy, independent thinking, and emotional intelligence along with physical capabilities. We're not becoming weapons, we're becoming more human than we were before. Dr. Carver understood the elegant brilliance of Dr. Voss's deception. He'd given the government what they thought they wanted while actually creating enhanced individuals who would naturally resist authoritarian control. The genetic modifications that were supposed to create obedient super soldiers instead produced people with enhanced capacity for moral reasoning and emotional connection. Emma's transformation was reaching a critical juncture where her developing abilities were integrating with her personality and values. Unlike the violent process her father had experienced, her enhancement was guided by natural psychological development that emphasized growth rather than control. "I can feel the network," Emma announced, her voice now carrying the full harmonic range that marked complete genetic integration. Enhanced individuals all over the world. They're not trying to conquer or control anything. They're trying to help humanity evolve beyond the need for weapons and war. Agent Torres Rebecca revealed the final piece of the conspiracy that recontextualized everything they thought they knew about Project Metamorphosis. The program wasn't just an American military experiment. It was part of an international effort to guide human evolution. But different nations had different goals for their enhanced populations. The American program was designed to create soldiers, Rebecca explained. But Dr. Voss was working with international scientists who wanted to create peacemakers, healers, and teachers. The conflict between these goals is why some transformations succeed while others fail catastrophically. Marcus realized that his violent transformation hadn't been caused by exposure to biological weapons. It had been triggered by psychological conflict between his military conditioning and the peaceful intentions programmed into his genetic enhancements. His body was literally at war with itself until he chose to embrace his enhanced empathy rather than his trained aggression. The hospital had become the center of a much larger battle between those who wanted to use enhanced humans as tools of control and those who believed genetic enhancement should serve human freedom and growth. Emma represented the successful fusion of both approaches, enhanced capabilities, guided by enhanced humanity. Dr. Carver made a decision that would change her life forever. She chose to abandon her government clearance and work directly with Dr. Voss to help enhanced individuals integrate their abilities, while maintaining their humanity and free will. As enhanced subjects around the world began exposing Project Metamorphosis to international media, the Hayes family faced their most crucial decision yet: whether to hide their abilities and try to return to normal life, or embrace their transformation and help guide humanity's next evolutionary step. The choice they made would determine not just their own future, but the future of human consciousness itself. Emma's genetic profile displayed on Dr. Voss's advanced monitoring equipment revealed patterns that defied everything the scientific community thought they understood about human evolution. Her DNA wasn't just enhanced, it was actively rewriting itself in real time, guided by conscious intention rather than random mutation. The young woman who'd entered the VA medical center as a high school senior was transforming into something that represented the next phase of human consciousness. Her physical changes were subtle: improved coordination, enhanced sensory perception, increased cognitive processing speed, but her psychological evolution was profound. Dr. Voss, Dr. Carver said through their secure communication link, Emma's Neural activity is showing patterns I've never seen before. It's as if her brain is developing new structures for processing information and emotions simultaneously. Dr. Voss's response carried both excitement and concern. That's exactly what we hoped would happen with third-generation subjects. But Emma's development is proceeding faster than our models predicted. She's not just inheriting enhanced capabilities, she's creating new ones. The transformation was triggering Emma's latent abilities at an accelerated pace as stress hormones interacted with her modified genetics. She could now sense the emotional states of everyone around her, process complex information at near-computer speeds, and most remarkably, communicate telepathically with other enhanced individuals across significant distances. Marcus watched his daughter's evolution with a mixture of pride and protective anxiety. His own transformation had been violent and traumatic, but Emma's was guided by natural psychological development that emphasized growth over disruption. She was becoming something wonderful, but also something that might be beyond his ability to protect. "Dad," Emma said, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated with both her father's and aunt's tones. "I can feel what you're thinking. The fear, the love, the need to keep me safe. But I'm not in danger from what I'm becoming. I'm in danger from people who want to control what I'm becoming." Rebecca Torres had been coordinating with enhanced individuals worldwide through the telepathic network that Dr. Voss had unknowingly created when he designed the genetic modifications. What she discovered was both inspiring and terrifying. Enhanced humans were spontaneously organizing into a collective consciousness that transcended national boundaries and political loyalties. "The network isn't just communication," Rebecca explained to the group. "Enhanced individuals are developing shared memories, collective problem-solving abilities, and coordinated responses to threats. We're becoming something like a distributed, intelligent, still individual, but connected in ways that normal humans can't understand." Dr. Carver was struggling to comprehend the implications of what she was witnessing. If enhanced humans could share consciousness while maintaining individual identity, they represented a fundamental shift in human evolution, not just biological, but psychological and spiritual. Sarah Hayes found herself at the center of a transformation that went far beyond her family's personal crisis. Her daughter was becoming a bridge between normal humanity and whatever enhanced humans would become, while her husband was learning to balance his military training with enhanced empathy and moral reasoning. "Emma," Sarah said with the calm authority that had served her well as both a teacher and a military wife, "I need you to help me understand what you're becoming. Not the science or the genetics. I need to know if you're still my daughter." Emma's response demonstrated the integration of her enhanced cognitive abilities with her essential humanity. "I'm more your daughter than I ever was before. Mom, I can feel how much you love me, how much you've sacrificed to raise me, how proud you are, even when you're scared. The enhancements don't change who I am. They help me understand who I've always been." The emotional connection between mother and daughter triggered another phase of Emma's development. Her empathic abilities expanded to allow her not just to sense emotions, but to help regulate them in others. The fear and anxiety that had been building in the room gradually gave way to calm determination as Emma unconsciously projected emotional stability. Dr. Voss emerged from his mountain hideout and began the journey to Nashville, carrying with him the stabilizing serum that could help Emma control her accelerating transformation. But his travel was being monitored by government forces who had finally located him after 3 years of searching. "We have a problem," Rebecca announced after receiving telepathic updates from enhanced individuals monitoring government communications. "Military forces are converging on this location, with orders to capture or eliminate all enhanced subjects. They're not just trying to contain the situation anymore, they're trying to end it." Marcus's enhanced senses confirmed Rebecca's warning. He could detect the approach of heavy vehicles, the scent of military-grade equipment, and the electromagnetic signatures of advanced weapon systems. The government had decided that Project Metamorphosis was too dangerous to continue and too valuable to allow to fall into enemy hands. They're going to try to eliminate everyone with knowledge of the program, Marcus realized with growing alarm. Enhanced subjects, medical personnel, family members, anyone who could expose what they've done. Dr. Carver made a decision that would define the rest of her career. She began downloading and encrypting every piece of Project Metamorphosis data she could access, preparing to broadcast the information to international media and medical organizations before the government could stop her. "If they want to silence us," she said with grim determination, "they'll have to silence the entire world. This information needs to be public before they can cover it up." Emma's transformation reached a critical juncture as the stress of the approaching military threat triggered the final integration of her enhanced abilities. Her consciousness expanded to encompass the global network of enhanced individuals, allowing her to coordinate responses across continents in real time. "I can see them," Emma announced, her voice now carrying an otherworldly authority that commanded attention. "Enhanced people all over the world. They're all connected through me somehow. I'm not just becoming enhanced, I'm becoming the center of whatever we're all becoming together." The realization was staggering. Emma wasn't just another enhanced individual. She was the focal point of a new form of human consciousness that connected enhanced people globally. Her unique genetics had made her the hub of a telepathic network that spanned the entire planet. Rebecca understood immediately what was happening. Dr. Voss built more into the genetic modifications than anyone realized. Emma's not just the third generation of enhanced humans. She's the first of a new species, a bridge between individual consciousness and collective intelligence. Marcus felt his protective instincts warring with his recognition that his daughter was becoming something beyond his ability to shelter. She was evolving into a form of consciousness that could help guide human evolution, but only if she survived the next few hours. Sarah made a decision that would echo through history. Rather than trying to protect Emma from her transformation, she chose to help her daughter embrace her evolution while maintaining her essential humanity. "Emma," she said with the quiet strength that had sustained their family through decades of military life, "whatever you're becoming, you're still responsible for choosing how to use your abilities. Enhanced or not, you're still my daughter, and I trust you to make the right choices." The military forces surrounding the hospital weren't just American enhanced individuals. Worldwide were reporting similar military responses from their respective governments. The transformation that had begun with one veteran's medical appointment was triggering a global conflict between those who wanted to control human evolution and those who believed it should be guided by enhanced humans themselves. Dr. Voss's arrival at the hospital coincided with the beginning of the military assault. The stabilizing serum he carried could help Emma control her accelerating abilities, but administering it would require precise timing and protection from government forces who would do anything to prevent enhanced individuals from gaining independence. As enhanced subjects worldwide prepared to defend themselves and their families, Emma made a choice that would determine the future of human consciousness. She decided to use her position as the focal point of the enhanced network not to control other enhanced individuals, but to coordinate their efforts to protect normal humans from the chaos that was about to erupt. The battle for the future of humanity was about to begin, with a 17-year-old girl at the center of a transformation that would echo through generations. The military strike order that Agent Rebecca Torres intercepted from government communications was marked with the highest levels of classification and carried authorization from the Secretary of Defense himself. The document was brutally clear. All Project Metamorphosis subjects and witnesses were to be eliminated to protect national security, with no exceptions for family members or medical personnel. "They're not trying to capture us anymore," Rebecca announced as she shared the intercepted orders with the group. This is an extermination mission. They've decided that enhanced humans are too dangerous to exist. Marcus felt his enhanced reflexes and tactical training merging with his paternal instincts as he assessed their defensive position. The VA Medical Center's third floor was easily surrounded, but it also offered multiple exit routes and defensive advantages for someone with his enhanced capabilities and military experience. Sarah, he said, with the calm authority of a soldier preparing for battle. We need to move to a more defensible position. Dr. Carver, can you continue broadcasting the Project Metamorphosis files while we relocate? Dr. Carver had already established connections with news organizations and medical institutions worldwide. The data streams were flowing automatically now, ensuring that even if the government silenced everyone in the hospital, the truth about genetic enhancement experiments would survive. The uploads are at 60% completion, she reported while gathering essential medical equipment. If we can hold them off for another 20 minutes, the entire Project Metamorphosis database will be public. Emma's enhanced awareness allowed her to track the approaching military forces with precision that exceeded electronic surveillance. Through her connection to the global enhanced network, she could coordinate defensive strategies with enhanced individuals on every continent. Dad, she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated with authority beyond her 17 years. Other enhanced people are coming to help, but the military has weapons designed specifically for use against enhanced humans. Dr. Voss's research was used to create countermeasures. The irony was devastating. The same scientist who tried to protect enhanced individuals from government control had been forced to help develop weapons that could neutralize enhanced capabilities. His knowledge of enhanced physiology had been turned against the very people he tried to protect. Rebecca's tactical assessment confirmed Emma's warning. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that disrupt enhanced neural patterns, chemical agents that interfere with modified genetics, and acoustic weapons that exploit enhanced hearing. They've prepared for this confrontation. Sarah Hayes demonstrated the strength that has sustained her through 20 years as a military wife by taking charge of the evacuation logistics. Her teaching experience with emergency drills and her familiarity with military protocols made her an invaluable coordinator despite her lack of enhanced abilities. Dr. Carver and I will secure the medical equipment and data, she announced with calm efficiency. Marcus, Rebecca, and Emma need to focus on defense and communication with other enhanced individuals. We work as a team or we don't survive this. The first wave of the military assault began with the systematic shutdown of hospital communications and power systems. Government forces were following protocols designed to isolate and contain enhanced subjects before engaging them directly. But they hadn't anticipated the global telepathic network that connected enhanced individuals across continents. Emma's role as the focal point of enhanced consciousness became crucial as she coordinated defensive responses not just for her family, but for enhanced individuals worldwide who were facing similar military action. Her consciousness expanded to encompass tactical situations on multiple continents simultaneously. I can see all of them, she announced, her enhanced cognitive abilities processing information streams that would overwhelm normal human consciousness. Enhanced people in Russia, China, Europe, South America, governments everywhere are trying to eliminate us at the same time. This is a coordinated global operation. Marcus realized that this wasn't just about containing Project Metamorphosis. This was about preventing the next phase of human evolution from proceeding independently. The world's governments had decided that enhanced humans represented an existential threat to existing power structures. Dr. Voss reached the hospital perimeter just as the military cordon was being established. His arrival triggered immediate tactical responses from government forces who'd been hunting him for 3 years. But he wasn't alone. Enhanced individuals from across the region were converging on Nashville to protect Emma and support the global resistance. The stabilizing serum he carried could help Emma integrate her rapidly developing abilities without losing her essential humanity. But reaching her would require getting past military forces equipped with anti-enhanced weapons and authorization to kill anyone who interfered with their mission. Rebecca made the crucial decision to reveal her full capabilities to government forces who still believed she was their agent. Her enhanced speed and tactical intelligence allowed her to breach the building's perimeter defenses and create an opening for Dr. Voss to reach the medical center. "I'm done pretending to serve people who want to commit genocide against enhanced humans," she declared as she disabled surveillance systems with precision that demonstrated years of preparation for this moment. Marcus felt the weight of protecting his family while simultaneously coordinating with enhanced individuals worldwide who were facing similar life-or-death situations. His transformation from soldier to protector was complete. His enhanced abilities were serving love rather than war. The battle for humanity's evolutionary future had begun, with the Hayes family at the center of a conflict that would determine whether genetic enhancement would be used to serve freedom or to maintain control through fear and violence. The global activation signal that Emma discovered in the government's tactical systems was both a weapon and an opportunity, a device that could trigger transformation in thousands of dormant Project Metamorphosis subjects worldwide, creating an army of enhanced humans under government control. Emma's enhanced consciousness recognized the terrible choice before her. She could activate the signal and create enough enhanced individuals to overwhelm the military forces attacking them. But doing so would force transformation on people who hadn't consented to genetic modification. Or she could destroy the signal and accept that enhanced humans would remain a small, hunted minority. "Emma," Dr. Voss said as he finally reached her position, carrying the stabilizing serum that could help her integrate her abilities while maintaining full control over her choices. The activation signal isn't just about creating more enhanced humans. It's about whether enhanced consciousness will be guided by fear or by love. Marcus engaged the first wave of military assault with enhanced capabilities that transformed him from a defensive father into a tactical force that could protect his family while minimizing harm to the soldiers who were following orders they didn't fully understand. His enhanced empathy allowed him to disable opponents without killing them, demonstrating the moral evolution that Dr. Voss had secretly programmed into the genetic modifications. Dr. Carver's broadcast of Project Metamorphosis data reached critical mass as international news organizations began reporting on the genetic enhancement conspiracy, the revelation that governments worldwide had been experimenting on their own citizens while planning to eliminate enhanced individuals created immediate political pressure to halt the military operations. Sarah coordinated the evacuation of non-enhanced hospital staff while serving as a crucial link between normal humans and the enhanced individuals fighting to protect them. Her presence reminded everyone that this battle wasn't about enhanced versus normal humans. It was about freedom versus control. "The whole world is watching now," she announced as news feeds showed military assaults on enhanced individuals in multiple countries. "They can't cover this up anymore. Everyone can see what they're doing to people who only wanted to serve their countries." Rebecca's confrontation with her former commanding officer revealed the full scope of government planning for enhanced human elimination. Colonel Morrison, no relation to the hospital administrator, had been Marcus's superior during the laboratory mission and had undergone enhancement himself. But his psychological conditioning had made him loyal to government control rather than enhanced consciousness. "You were designed to be weapons," Colonel Morrison declared as he faced Marcus with enhanced abilities that matched his former subordinate's capabilities. Dr. Voss corrupted the program with his ideas about enhanced empathy and moral reasoning. Enhanced humans are supposed to follow orders, not question authority. The battle between Marcus and Colonel Morrison represented the fundamental conflict at the heart of Project Metamorphosis, whether enhanced abilities would serve institutional power or individual conscience. Marcus's victory wasn't achieved through superior strength, but through his enhanced empathy, allowing him to reach the humanity that still existed beneath. Colonel Morrison's conditioning. Emma made her choice about the global activation signal with wisdom that reflected both her enhanced intelligence and her essential humanity. Instead of using the device to create more enhanced humans or destroying it to prevent government control, she reprogrammed it to offer voluntary transformation to individuals worldwide who wanted to participate in humanity's next evolutionary step. Everyone deserves the right to choose their own evolution, she declared as she broadcast the modified signal globally. But no one should be forced to change against their will. Enhanced consciousness has to be based on freedom, not control. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of individuals worldwide, veterans, medical personnel, teachers, scientists, and ordinary citizens volunteered for enhancement when given the choice. But millions more chose to remain unchanged, and Emma's programming ensured their decision was respected. Dr. Voss successfully administered the stabilizing serum to Emma, allowing her to integrate her role as the focal point of enhanced consciousness, while maintaining her individual identity and family connections. The treatment ensured that she could coordinate global enhanced activities without losing her essential humanity. Marcus's ultimate sacrifice came not through death, but through his decision to sever his connection to the global enhanced network, to ensure that Emma's consciousness remained free from any external influence. His paternal love proved stronger than the collective consciousness that linked enhanced individuals worldwide. "Emma," he said, as he used Dr. Voss's equipment to isolate his own enhanced abilities, "you need to lead enhanced consciousness toward helping humanity grow, not controlling it. I trust you to make choices I never could." Government forces began retreating as international pressure mounted, and enhanced individuals demonstrated their commitment to protection rather than conquest. The military assault that was supposed to eliminate enhanced humans instead revealed their potential to serve as guardians of human evolution. The hospital's destruction was prevented as enhanced individuals and normal humans worked together to protect the evidence of government conspiracy while ensuring the safety of everyone involved. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with the beginning of a new relationship between enhanced and normal humanity based on cooperation rather than fear. 6 months after the confrontation at the Nashville VA Medical Center, the Hayes family had established a new life in the remote mountains of Montana, not far from Dr. Voss's research facility. The new identity documents they carried reflected their changed circumstances. Marcus Hayes was now listed as a genetic consultant, Sarah as an educational coordinator, and Emma as a student researcher in evolutionary biology. The cabin they'd chosen overlooked the valley where other enhanced individuals had built a small community dedicated to helping people integrate their new abilities while maintaining their essential humanity. It wasn't a commune or compound. It was simply a place where enhanced and normal humans could live together while exploring what human evolution might become when guided by choice rather than control. Emma had grown into her role as the focal point of enhanced consciousness with grace that reflected both her inherited wisdom and her parents' guidance. Her abilities had stabilized at levels that allowed her to coordinate with enhanced individuals worldwide while maintaining strong connections to her family and local community. Each morning, she would sit in her father's old chair on the cabin's porch, writing in the journal Marcus had started during his deployments. The leather-bound notebook now contained not just reflections on military service, but observations about the integration of enhanced and normal humanity, the ethical implications of voluntary genetic modification, and the responsibility that came with abilities beyond normal human parameters.
Day 184 since Nashville. She wrote in careful handwriting that had inherited Marcus's precision.
Enhanced individuals worldwide report continued integration of abilities with local communities. No conflicts between enhanced and normal humans. When enhancement is voluntary and transparent, Dr. Voss's safeguards continue to prevent. Psychological conditioning, enhanced empathy, and moral reasoning remain the strongest aspects of the modifications. Dr. Carver had left her position at the VA Medical Center to work directly with Dr. Voss in developing ethical protocols for voluntary genetic enhancement. A research focused on ensuring that enhancement processes strengthened human virtues like compassion, wisdom, and creativity rather than just physical capabilities. The international exposure of Project Metamorphosis had led to congressional hearings that revealed the full scope of genetic experimentation on military personnel and their families. The testimonies provided by Marcus, Rebecca, and other enhanced individuals had resulted in new international treaties governing genetic research and the rights of enhanced humans. Sarah had found her calling in developing educational programs that helped normal and enhanced children learn together, recognizing that the future of humanity would require cooperation between both groups. Her teaching experience had proven invaluable in creating curricula that celebrated diversity while building understanding between different types of human consciousness. Rebecca Torres had been granted full pardons for her years of covert resistance to Project Metamorphosis and had established an organization dedicated to helping enhanced individuals integrate into society while protecting them from government persecution. Her work had been recognized by international human rights organizations as crucial to preventing future genetic experimentation abuses. Marcus had adapted to his enhanced abilities while maintaining the values that had made him a good soldier and father. His connection to the global enhanced network remained severed by his own choice, but his relationship with his family had grown stronger as he learned to balance his protective instincts with respect for Emma's developing autonomy. "I've been thinking about the old deployment journal," he told Emma one evening as they watched the sunset over the Montana mountains. "How I used to write about protecting freedom and democracy. I never understood that the greatest freedom is the right to choose your own evolution." The global community of enhanced individuals had grown to include thousands of people from every continent, but they remained a small minority of the human population. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that genetic enhancement could coexist with normal humanity when based on voluntary choice and ethical principles. Emma's work coordinating enhanced consciousness had evolved into something resembling diplomatic service, helping resolve conflicts, facilitating communication between different groups, and ensuring that enhanced abilities were used to support human flourishing rather than dominate it. Dr. Voss continued his research from the Montana facility, but now with full transparency and international oversight. His focus had shifted from creating enhanced humans to understanding how enhanced consciousness could help guide humanity through the challenges of climate change, resource scarcity, and the social conflicts that threaten global stability. The congressional hearings had also led to reparations for families affected by Project Metamorphosis. Though no amount of money could compensate for years of genetic manipulation and surveillance. More importantly, the exposure of the program had led to new protections for human subjects in medical research and strict regulations on genetic modification experiments. Emma's final entry in her father's journal reflected the wisdom she'd gained through her transformation and her role in reshaping human evolution. Enhancement isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming more deeply human, more capable of love, understanding, and moral reasoning. The abilities we've gained are gifts that come with the responsibility to protect and nurture all forms of human consciousness. As autumn painted the Montana mountains in brilliant colors, the Hayes family gathered on their porch for their evening ritual of sharing observations about the day. Marcus had regained much of his original appearance.
though his enhanced abilities remained.
Sarah had developed a deeper understanding of human potential through her work with enhanced and normal children. Emma had grown into a young woman whose wisdom served as a bridge between humanity's past and its possible futures. The transformation that had begun with a small lump on a veteran's neck had become a catalyst for humanity's conscious participation in its own evolution. The choice between fear and love, control and freedom, had been made in favor of growth guided by wisdom rather than power driven by fear. The story of the Hays family had become part of a larger narrative about human potential, the ethics of genetic enhancement, and the possibility that evolution could be guided by humanity's highest values rather than its deepest fears. In choosing love over control, they had helped ensure that the future of human consciousness would be determined by individual choice rather than institutional power.